of our continuing coverage of the situation in Panama. From CBS News headquarters in New York, here is Dan Rather.
Good evening again. CBS News is reporting that Manuel Noriega has been turned over to U.S. authorities in Panama. Further details we do not know. An official confirmation is expected in Washington very shortly, possibly from President Bush himself. These are photographs taken with a night lens of what we believe to be the helicopter operation that took Noriega away from the vicinity of the Vatican Embassy in Panama City. It takes a little time to get used to the telephoto night lens here. You will note the helicopters have no running lights as they normally would have. No one can be certain, but we believe that those are photographs of the operation that took Manuel Noriega away from the area of the Vatican Embassy in Panama. Now, the circumstances in which Manuel Noriega got into the hands of U.S. authorities in Panama, we simply do not know, but we do expect that there will be a clarification shortly, a clarification probably coming from the White House itself and possibly coming from President Bush himself. CBS News White House correspondent Leslie Stahl is standing by. Leslie, next to capturing Noriega by U.S. forces, President Bush and his administration will certainly argue that this is the next best possible thing to have happened.
Well, that's probably what they're going to say publicly. I was told a few days ago that they were saying publicly they wanted to bring him here for trial, but they weren't so sure that their case was solid. They've since said that it is, and that's their public position. But, Dan, they only just in the last few days began to comb through what kind of secrets he might ask for at a trial. They didn't do that when the indictment came down. They've just started doing that right now. So they really don't have any idea at this point just what kind of classified documents he might ask for in a trial. But I will tell you one thing. We do know the president is going to come out very shortly and report to us how this deal to get Noriega to the United States came about, when it came about. These are questions that we don't know the answers to as of this moment.
And for those who may have just joined us, Leslie, repeating that CBS News has been told that Manuel Noriega has been turned over to U.S. authorities in Panama. Leslie, there's no sense speculating at this late date, since we do, as you just confirmed, expect to hear from the president on that podium behind you shortly. There are so many possibilities of even yet going to some third country location that I think we just have to wait for the official announcement for any further detail. Well,
I will tell you that, you know, when they, let me just see if this is the president, could be him coming in right now, that just about an hour or so ago, they closed the White House down and everybody went home. That's how unsure they were that this was going to happen tonight. Something was obviously afoot. You could feel that the mood around here was different, but the spokesman told us that they weren't sure something was going to happen. They didn't know, but they wanted to warn us something could happen tonight. And you're right, we really don't know where he has gone off to at this point, but Dan, I think we can safely assume that if he is in American hands, that they are going to bring him to the United States.
Leslie Stahl, as part of our continuing live CBS News coverage, Leslie, at the White House, as we await President Bush's appearance in the White House briefing room in Washington, as part of our live CBS News special report on Manuel Noriega being turned over to U.S. authorities in Panama, we go quickly to Panama City and correspondent Doug Tennell, who will describe for us what has been happening there and what's happening now. Doug?
Dan, about 39 minutes ago, several persons, apparently in civilian dress, walked to the gate of the embassy, and there were two flashes where a photographer seemed to be taking their pictures. That was a tip that the only people who can get to that part of the embassy compound are military, and they've always said they would have a photographer on hand if they brought Noriega out. We then began to pay closer attention, and almost instantaneously, we could hear the sound of helicopters turning on in a courtyard behind a school where the negotiators had been working. Later, it was reported that a group of about 10 people walked toward the helicopters there, and they lifted off. They lifted off with lights out, two of them, and they then flew out over the Pacific and off in a direction that remains unknown. The betting here has always been that Noriega would be taken to Howard Air Force Base, an American Air Force base not too far from the center of the city, and then whisked away to whatever his next destination might be. But that remains just the betting. We haven't heard anything from military authorities yet about his whereabouts at this moment. Interestingly enough, though, Dan, at this moment, the military remains surrounding the Vatican Embassy compound, and the guards at the gate are still blocking the exits and the entrances as if he were still there.
Since we've been told authoritatively, Doug, that Manuel Noriega is now in the hands of U.S. authorities, let's look back on those minutes that preceded the time we thought that he was being turned over. There was, we could make out, some military uniformed people and a man in a white suit or uniform right there at the embassy grounds. Tell us about that.
Well, the man in the white uniform, of course, was, we believe, Manuel Noriega. And ironically, he was, it seems, wearing white this evening. He was seen by eyewitnesses in a group of men wearing civilian dress, walking out across a helicopter landing pad just behind the school where the negotiators were working. And then he was seen boarding one of the two helicopters that were resting there. After a short time, then those helicopters took off out to sea.
Doug Tennell in Panama City. We go now to our Pentagon correspondent, David Martin, who's standing by at the Defense Department. David, what can you tell us about the situation in which Noriega has been turned over to U.S. authorities?
Well, Dan, as I understand it, this was something that was always up to Noriega in the final analysis. He had to make the decision to walk out of the embassy because the Vatican had said repeatedly that they were not going to turn him over. But if he walked out on his own, then of course we could take control of him and the Vatican would not violate its principle of extending sanctuary to those in need. That apparently is what happened. He apparently has walked out of his own free will. I am certain he is now in U.S. custody. I do not know the exact circumstances under which he finally made up his mind to walk out, whether there is some sort of implicit or explicit deal, whether, for instance, he might be allowed free on bail pending what is certain to be lengthy legal maneuvering prior to any trial of his here in the United States, or if there's any deal on the kinds of conditions he would be held under. But it does seem absolutely certain that Manuel Noriega is going to now face justice in the United States.
David, as part of our continuing CBS News live coverage of the situation there, ousted Panamanian strongman Manuel Noriega voluntarily turned himself over to U.S. authorities. A priest in the Vatican embassy in Panama City is quoted as having told United Press International tonight. Now, we want to again show you the photographs of the operation in which Manuel Noriega left the Panama City embassy. And as we do that, the situation was, as you can see with our night lens here, that flashlights, people moved from the embassy grounds to the helicopter takeoff place, and the helicopter then took off for destination unknown with Manuel Noriega aboard. No one knows where Noriega is headed, but the fact that a priest in the embassy now says that Noriega voluntarily turned himself over to U.S. authorities would indicate that Noriega is expected to be taken to the United States. No one knows exactly where, but Homestead Air Force Base in Florida is obviously one possibility. Our CBS News reporter, Ron Allen, is there. Ron?
Dan, earlier today, the U.S. Attorney's Office here that issued the indictment against Noriega said that they were all but certain that he would be coming here to Homestead Air Force Base if he did, in fact, was turned over to U.S. authorities. They have been very tight-lipped here at the air base all night about the whole Noriega deal. We have not been able to confirm, but there are reports that U.S. Marshals are either en route or here at the base and ready to receive Noriega should he arrive here. It is still a couple hours of flying time before he could get to Miami from Panama. We are told that once he arrives here, he will be taken to a secret location where he will be held in protective custody, and then he will make his initial appearance before a federal magistrate here in Miami. 4 other defendants also named in the same indictment have gone through a similar process as they have arrived here in Miami. Dan?
Ron Allen at Homestead Air Force Base in Florida. We go back now to Doug Tennell, who's in Panama. Doug, I understand the celebrations are already underway in the streets of Panama City as word spread that Noriega had voluntarily turned himself over to U.S. authorities.
It's beginning to look like the start of a big party here, Dan. The Vatican Embassy is surrounded by tall, high-rise apartment buildings, and just as soon as word got out that Noriega was gone, the lights began to flicker off and on those balconies. You could hear people coming out, beating pots and pans. They're still beating them. I don't know if you can hear it now. Lights flickering on and off and stopping and shouting. There were horns honking in the street. It almost looked like New Year's Eve. Clearly, this part of Panama City is rejoicing in the fact that Noriega's gone.
Doug, we had these reports earlier in the evening. According to Associated Press, U.S. military officials were trying to persuade the mistress of General Noriega to lure the ousted dictator from his refuge in the Vatican embassy. This was according to the Associated Press that Vicky Amato, a 35-year-old longtime acquaintance, to say the least, of Manuel Noriega, had been in the custody of the United States and then was released, as the AP story describes it, to try to lure the general out. Any indication that might have been what finally got him out to turn himself over voluntarily?
Well, it's not beyond the realm of possibility. The Army's been a little bit strange with her whereabouts. It was reported that they picked her up not too many days ago, but the Army never confirmed or denied those reports, unlike almost every other report on other individuals associated with him. And in fact, Dan, right now, talking about the balconies and the celebrations here, I'm looking at the building where she lives. And even there, on the balconies there, you can see people out and flashing the lights and beating their pots and pans. Certainly, it must make her feel a little strange if she can hear and see all of this from her own neighbors, telling her that what they really think about the man that she's associated with. Not beyond the realm of possibility, she was a key player in whatever deal was done to get Noriega out.
Doug Tennell in Panama City. Leslie Stahl at the White House, as we await the president's statement, now the indication was given about 15 minutes ago that we probably would have some official confirmation of this. There's no doubt that the president is going to come out. One can understand it may take them a while to put together the arrangements for him to come out and exactly what he is going to say. We know already that the White House and the president put what's been described as extreme pressure on the Vatican to make some arrangements to get Noriega out of that embassy.
Dan, there was an interesting signal here today about the negotiations that were going on. Dan, we're having a briefing now behind me, and I'm afraid I'm going to have to sit down. I'm sorry.
We, of course, could not be sure that it would actually occur. President Bush remained in the residence until Secretary Cheney called him at approximately 9 o'clock this evening to say that General Noriega was in our custody. The president immediately came to the Oval Office to work on remarks, which he will be presenting to you.
Marlon Fitzwater, the presidential press secretary.
I'll give you a 2-minute warning in just a second. The president will not take questions following his statement, but General Maxwell Thurman, commander of SOUTHCOM, will hold a briefing in Panama on the details of the situation. General Thurman's briefing will follow the president's statement very soon. We'll be right back.
Well, Marlon Fitzwater saying what you would expect under the circumstances, that the president is expected out very shortly. As part of the White House briefing room routine is for the presidential press secretary to say, here's a 2-minute warning before the president comes out. He indicated that the president himself would not be taking any questions. Not unusual in the broad scope of what's happened with recent presidencies, but President Bush, during his time, has been generally taking questions, but Fitzwater making it clear that this evening the president would not be taking any questions, but saying that whatever briefing there's going to be on this will be happening in Panama with General Thurman, who is in command there. So we expect to have President Bush appearing as part of our live CBS News coverage here in about 1.5 minutes from the White House. General Noriega has been turned over to U.S. authorities in Panama. A priest inside the Vatican embassy said he was turned over voluntarily early this evening. Those of you who've been with us saw the pictures, dark, shadowy, sort of blooming pictures of General Noriega being taken out with a helicopter with the lights off, being taken presumably to Howard Air Force Base in Panama City for transfer to some other place, we know not where. Again, presumably the United States, but we do not know that. Now, emphasis is being placed that Noriega gave himself up voluntarily. The Vatican priest, that is the priest from the Vatican embassy, emphasized that part of the Vatican's general position, that they would not and could not turn Noriega directly over to United States authorities. And so the announcement that from the embassy standpoint that Noriega had voluntarily turned himself over to U.S. authorities. Leslie, we expect the president in about 1 minute.
Yeah, Dan, I was in the middle of telling you something very interesting that happened here today during our regular briefing, not the one we just had. It seemed to be a signal to Noriega. Apparently, during the negotiations, he asked whether he would face the death penalty if he did come here and face trial. During the briefing today, Marlon Fitzwater sent a very clear signal that under the indictments that Noriega faces, and he's been indicted in 2 different cases here, he would not face the death penalty. So that signal was sent very clearly from the White House. Dan, they are announcing the president is coming in the briefing room.
Well, on Wednesday, December 20th, I ordered U.S. troops to Panama with 4 objectives: to safeguard the lives of American citizens, to help restore democracy, to protect the integrity of the Panama Canal treaties, and to bring General Manuel Noriega to justice. All of these objectives have now been achieved. At about 8:50 this evening, General Noriega turned himself in to U.S. authorities in Panama with the full knowledge of the Panamanian government. He was taken to Howard Air Force Base in Panama, where he was arrested by DEA. A U.S. Air Force C-130 is now transporting General Noriega to Homestead Air Force Base, Florida. He will be arraigned in the U.S. District Court in Miami on charges stemming from his previous indictment for drug trafficking. I want to thank the Vatican and the Papal Nuncio in Panama for their even-handed, statesman-like assistance in recent days. The United States is committed to providing General Noriega a fair trial. Nevertheless, his apprehension and return to the United States should send a clear signal that the United States is serious in its determination that those charged with promoting the distribution of drugs cannot escape the scrutiny of justice. The return of General Noriega marks a significant milestone in Operation Just Cause. The U.S. used its resources in a manner consistent with political, diplomatic, and moral principles. The first U.S. combat troops have already been withdrawn from Panama. Others will follow as quickly as the local situation will permit. We are now engaged in the final stages of a process that includes the economic and political revitalization of this important friend and neighbor, Panama. An economic team under the direction of Deputy Secretary of State Eagleberger and Deputy Secretary of Treasury Robson is just returning from Panama. A team of experts has remained on hand there to assess the full range of needs. We will continue to extend to the Panamanian people our support and assistance in the days ahead. Panamanians, Americans both, has sacrificed much to restore democracy to Panama. The armed forces of the United States have performed their mission courageously and effectively. And I again want to express my gratitude and appreciation to all of them. And I want to express the special thanks of our nation to those servicemen who were wounded and to the families of those who gave their lives. Their sacrifice has been a noble cause and will never be forgotten. A free and prosperous Panama will be an enduring tribute. Thank you all very, very much.
As was announced earlier, President Bush determined not to take any questions after his official announcement that Manuel Noriega has indeed voluntarily given himself over to U.S. authorities and is, as we speak, on his way aboard a U.S. transport plane to Homestead Air Force Base in Florida. Now, sources have told CBS News that as late as this afternoon, General Noriega was questioning if the death penalty came with conviction on any indictments he faced in the United States. An intermediary at the nuncio in Panama City said no. This afternoon, one of Noriega's attorneys, Ray Takeff, asked the judge for leave because of serious medical reasons. So Noriega's attorney, who has been handling some of his case for him, is asked to be relieved, saying that he had some serious medical problems. David Martin is standing by at the Pentagon. David, this situation now is in the hands of U.S. military authorities, but in terms of transport. But the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, according to the President, actually has custody of the prisoner.
I think that's right, and I think you're going to hear in the coming hours, probably, as the U.S. Southern Command begins to brief reporters on exactly what transpired. A lot of legal terminology, because I think it's important, at least to the lawyers in this case, whether the word custody or control is used so that we don't step on the sensibilities of either the Vatican or the Panamanian government in describing the manner in which Noriega was turned over to the U.S. But all that aside, I mean, the fact is that he's on board a U.S. military transport plane, a C-130, bound for Homestead Air Force Base, which is just outside Miami. I think the normal flying time between Miami and Panama is about 3 hours, but the C-130 is a prop plane and would take longer than a regular commercial airliner, so I don't know exactly what time we might expect Manuel Noriega to land in the United States. And it's, I think, important, Dan, to point out that Manuel Noriega is a long way from either standing trial or being convicted. There are a lot of people in the Pentagon who have a queasy feeling about this indictment because it is all based, actually there are two indictments, one in Miami, one in Tampa. They are based primarily on the testimony of witnesses who are not necessarily the most reliable witnesses because of their own problems with the law or a past falling out with Noriega. They are going to be witnesses that a defense attorney could go at and make a good attempt at impeaching. I think a lot is going to depend on how much documentary evidence has been uncovered in Noriega's various hideaways in Panama, and whether it has been uncovered and brought to the United States in a way that meets, excuse me, all the requirements of the custody of evidence.
David, I want to discuss the availability of evidence to Noriega if and when he goes to trial and how that ties in with the various stories we've heard about intelligence, United States intelligence involvement with General Noriega. But first, let's review for our audience quickly what the charges are against General Noriega. We talk about the indictments. These are the major charges against him: drug smuggling, international drug trafficking, and money laundering. As David mentioned, that there are two sets of indictments here, if you will, one originating in Miami, one set, and the other in Tampa. Now, Leslie Stahl is standing by at the White House. Leslie, and we'll get back to David Martin, I think, in a moment. Let's stop for a second. Noriega is in the hands of the United States, being sent to the United States. Pause, give President Bush credit for at least this, that he's consistently said that his goal was to get Noriega returned to face trial. There were a lot of doubters as to whether that's actually what the president wanted, but on that, he has been as good as his word. Now, let's move to, Noriega has been quoted as saying on several occasions that in terms of evidence, that he, quote, and I'll try to clean it up, had President Bush in a vital place, unquote, in terms of the evidence. What has the White House said, officially and unofficially, about that, referring to the fact, and it is a fact, that President Bush had met Noriega in Panama, had a meeting with him there, at least one?
Well, I can tell you that the Press Secretary Marlin Fitzwater said the other day, and I'm quoting, Noriega can talk about Bush and secrets at the CIA till he's blue in the face. It's not going to make any difference. They seem to be quite confident that there's nothing he could do that could damage President Bush or embarrass him to such a degree that he didn't go out to pursue this man and bring him back to the country. What I was trying to say before, Dan, though, that they had never really gone back and looked methodically at what kinds of secrets he could ask to be revealed at the trial, what kind of documents he could subpoena, and they have just begun that process. So in terms of specifics, I don't think they actually have pinpointed what kind of documents he would seek, what kind of information he would demand to come out at a trial, and I'm not sure they really have figured out exactly how far they're willing to let this go. One other thing about the trial, you know, they have several of his cohorts now in custody in Florida, also facing drug charges, and they could get, if they sought to make deals with them, they could get testimony against Noriega from these people.
Quickly, Leslie, we want to go to Panama and correspondent Doug Tennell, who is there, but quickly, how does what you've just said square with what strikes many, both Republican and Democrat, in Congress as Attorney General Thornburg, under apparently direction and cooperation of the White House, trying to get the special prosecutor to, in effect, not even try Admiral Poindexter, the, quote, stonewalling, unquote. Naturally, Attorney General Thornburg has another view of this, of making available any documents about exactly what Oliver North was doing when he met with Noriega. And is it true that Poindexter met with Noriega? And if so, what was said? How does this square? How can it be made to come full circle?
Well, as you can imagine, that's the very kind of question that gets asked here at the White House virtually every day in the last week, ever since we went in and invaded in Panama. If you really want Noriega, are you really going to let these secrets out if you're trying to stop them in the other trials? And Marlon Fitzwater, again, the spokesman, says that Iran-Contra is different from this situation, a drug dealer. They feel that they, at least they say publicly, I want to stress that, this is the public on the record statements, that they're going to pursue, and they're going to let some of these secrets come out. Now, those are the public statements, Dan.
Leslie Stahl at the White House. Doug Tuttle is standing by in Panama City. Doug, what's the mood in the streets in Panama City at the moment? And does this increase or decrease the chances of the new Endara government, which the United States has installed there, actually beginning to govern?
Well, Dan, you know, I think for many days now we've all been wondering what is going to be the public reaction when he leaves. Well, now we know. All around me, I don't know if you can hear it, there are parades of cars in all the streets here. They're driving up and down. They're creating a bit of a problem for the U.S. troops right now because they're still barricading certain streets, and the cars are coming right up to the barbed wire, and the soldiers are having to wave them away. Everyone beating the pots and pans, honking their horns, flashing lights on the balconies in the apartment buildings all around here. Without question, it is the beginning of a big party. You can hear people chanting and singing and playing music, and I can even see figures out in the streets now running around in big groups. So we have no doubt about how people feel about the fact that General Noriega is no longer here. As to the Endara government, I think that there is no doubt as well that this is going to give them a big boost because despite all they've said, they've really been preoccupied with the problem of him being holed up in the Vatican embassy. They've had to think mostly about that, his departure being really the finale of the invasion that put them in motion as a government, that put them into power. Now that he's gone, they can get down to business. They can start solving some of the big problems that they face, and that's what they need the most. Dan?
Doug, there are those who have said, and there's a lot of views about it, that the sudden appointment of Dean Hinton as the new U.S. ambassador in Panama is to, in effect, quote, make him the government of Panama, unquote, with his vast experience, including experience in El Salvador. Is that the read on the ground in Panama City?
Very much so. Dean Hinton gets very high marks from government officials here. He's very well known to them, and from all those I spoke to today, very highly thought of. They're looking forward to a very good, strong relationship with the United States. They make no bones about that. And, of course, they've already started with the visit of Lawrence Eagleburger here today in high-level contacts with the U.S. government about those problems that need to be solved, the rebuilding of the city of Panama that was destroyed during the invasion, and all the other problems that are facing this country now that Noriega's gone.
Doug Tuttle in Panama City. Now, as we know because President Bush has said so within the last few minutes, that Manuel Noriega is now being flown to Homestead Air Force Base in Florida. Our CBS News reporter Ron Allen is on scene there. Ron?
Dan, security does seem to be increasing here somewhat now that the announcement has been made, and we would expect that in the near future that we will even see more security here. We are told now that we can expect Noriega here sometime after midnight, between midnight and 1 a.m. Eastern Time. That is our best estimate given the flying time from Panama. And again, the U.S. Attorney's Office has said that he will first be indicted here in Miami. There is also that other indictment outstanding in Tampa. We are not sure how that will be resolved. It is a lengthy 30-page document chronicling a number of alleged violations of federal narcotics laws that Noriega faces, first compiled in February of 1988, but the road seems to lead right here to Miami and right here to Homestead Air Force Base sometime after midnight. Dan?
Ron Allen at Homestead Air Force Base. We go back now to the Pentagon and CBS News correspondent David Martin. David, First of all, the question of, in addition to covering the Pentagon, that you do the best you can to cover U.S. intelligence services, has there been any queasiness on their part to the effect of saying, listen, a trial could be trouble if for no other reason than it might expose some of our operations in Central America? And, number two, what about the consistent accusations? There have been consistent accusations, never been proof, that there was a guns for the Contras South, drugs north operation going north to North America, run out of Panama and possibly by Noriega.
Dan, I don't know anything about that latter point. The former point, this fear of secrets being revealed.
Excuse me, David, I'm very sorry. The General Thurman is beginning his news conference in Panama, sure, and we want to switch now to Panama City and that news conference.
31, local time. Filing for Homestead Air Force Base in Florida. He is due to arrive there about 6 hours and 14 minutes from takeoff time, or 3:46 a.m. in the morning. As the President of the United States has already indicated, this completes the fourth of the missions that we were assigned when we were directed to come to Panama on the 20th of December this year. And I want to make a special thanks to Monsignor Laboa, who is the Vatican nuncio here in Panama City, for his extraordinary competence, statesmanlike conduct in a period of trying times for the last several days. We appreciate his work. He and Father Joe and Father Joseph and Father Javier all did Herculean work in the last few days to assist in this orderly transfer. Also like to thank the Panamanian government for their cooperation in these efforts, and specifically the State Department team. Undersecretary of State Eagleberger came in last night, spent the day with us, and departed tonight, headed to the United States. Ambassador Davis, the DCM, John Bushnell, Mike Kozak from Washington, just to name a few, who have participated in this effort in the last several days to come to completion on this phase of the operation. If it is useful for you to know that drug enforcement agents took him in custody at Howard Air Force Base, and thus he will be finally turned over in the United States tomorrow morning.
General Thurman with a news conference that was live in Panama City. General Manuel Noriega has been turned over to U.S. authorities in Panama City. The exact details of it not known. A priest at the Vatican's embassy in Panama City says that Noriega voluntarily turned himself over to U.S. authorities after asking as late this afternoon whether any death penalty came with possible conviction on drug indictments in the United States. And the Vatican embassy source said that Noriega was told no, that there would be no death penalty involved if there was a conviction. So Noriega is now on his way by U.S. military plane in the hands of U.S. drug enforcement agents to Homestead Air Force Base. There'll be a lot about this on your late local news tonight. Dan Rather, CBS News, New York.
This has been a CBS News special report.